Hi everyone, welcome to live stream Yoga with Louise, tips and cues to keep you safe and strong on the mat. Today we are going to be working into the whole body, firming up all of those important bits so that you feel more comfortable and confident in your own skin when you're standing butt-ass naked in front of the mirror. As always, I'd like you to play where you're comfortable, use a modification if you need to. Most importantly, try and challenge yourself, but never to the point of hurting yourself. All right, you ready to play? Let's hit the mat. We're going to set up for today's class in a kneeling frame towards the top end of your mat so that you've got a little bit of room to play behind you. You can keep those feet soft and relaxed behind you and place a little bit of padding underneath the knees if you need it. Kneeling up nice and tall, I want you to give me a little release into the shoulders as if you were shrugging towards and away from your ears, just rotating softly through the shoulders. Change the direction of your circular trace through the shoulders. Nice and tall through the torso in your kneeling frame. Come to stillness and float the arms out in front, palms looking in. Push your shoulders back against an imaginary wall and then disconnect from that wall. You're going to play with that movement, gently protracting and retracting through the shoulders as we wake up the shoulder girdle. Then float the arms softly overhead and think of elevating and depressing through the shoulders, almost as if you wanted to float your fingertips up towards the ceiling, touch the ceiling, and then come back down to your start position. Keep that stack of your kneel. Keep softly pulling the belly button in towards the center line. Drop the fingertips softly down at your side. Start in a neutral line through the shoulders and then depress through the shoulders as if you were trying to touch the floor with your fingertips and float back to your start position. So still playing with that elevate and depress through the shoulders, but this time your fingertips are pointing down towards the floor instead of pointing up towards the ceiling. You're going to give me 2 more. And then you're going to come to stillness at a midway point through the shoulders and softly twist side to side, just allowing the arms to cup gently around your hip line. You're going to give me 2 more. Come to stillness along the midline of the body. Float both hands into your lower back and give me a soft camel line. Keep it really gentle. Just use the fingertips in the lower back for support and focus on that inner thigh connection and that strong pull up from your pubic bone towards your breast line so that you can feel a nice stretch up through the lower trunk. Drop both arms at your sides, fingertips down towards the floor, nodding the chin softly towards the chest. You're either going to keep your kneeling frame or you're going to bring the 2 legs together and sit back on the heels. If this feels really uncomfortable for you, you could maybe take a block, place it on the floor, sit through the block and maybe sit back on the block. So just do what feels comfortable for you. Take a big breath in to prepare and give me a nice long line through the spine. Give me a little tuck of your tailbone and pull the belly button softly in. On an exhale, float softly off center to the left, maybe cupping around the thigh and placing the left fingertips softly on the floor behind you. Look over that back shoulder. Inhale for 5 as you come back towards the center line. Exhale for 10 as you softly rotate to the right, placing the right fingertips on the floor behind you. Inhale, come back to the center line. Exhale, repeat, this time trying to lean back a little bit further as you touch the floor. Inhale, come back to the center line. Exhale, softly rotate to the other side. Inhale, come back to the center. Exhale, see if you can plant one hand firmly on the floor, either just the fingertips or the whole hand connected to the floor, and slowly rotate through the top arm, gently looking over the back shoulder, or rotating through the head and making the ceiling your drishti or your focal point. Inhale, come softly back to the center, nod your chin softly down towards the chest. Inhale for 5 as you bring your chin line parallel to the floor. Exhale for 10 as you softly rotate, planting your backhand on the floor, softly rotating to either look down towards the floor or peeking up towards the ceiling as you find your twist. Come back to the center line, bringing it back to your kneeling frame and softly rotate through the shoulders, giving me a 4-stroke on both arms. Change the direction of your trace. Keep that nice kneeling frame through the torso. From here, we're going to set up a dolphin line on the mat, and I'll give you some play options. Interlace your hands, giving me a fist, and place your elbows on the floor in front of you. Step into a down dog frame through the body, stepping up the feet a little bit closer to your body so that you've got a nice little triangular shape through the torso. Don't collapse through the shoulders, so push the floor away with your elbows. The head is dangling off the floor, and you're either going to stay here holding your dolphin, or you're going to give me a dynamic dolphin plank. Drag the weight forward over your elbows and think of trying to touch your chin to the floor. Push back to your start position. You're going to try and do that dynamically 5 times with control. If moving back and forth is not for you, you're just going to hold your dolphin plank, allowing the crown of the head to just dangle down towards the floor, but not quite touch the floor. Keep piking your bum up towards the ceiling. Let's do one more. Keep that belly button firmly pulled in as you play. Come back to your start frame in your little dolphin line. You're going to ease your way onto the palms, soften through the knees as much as you need to, and walk your hands back towards your feet. Peel up softly, ragdoll roll up, coming to a standing frame with your hips stacking underneath your knees. Look back and check that you've got enough room to kick back behind you. If you don't, take a step forward. Placing the arms softly at your side, feet stacking underneath your hips, you're going to kick up into a warrior 3 line. Let's play with a little aeroplane arm first. So softly float the right leg behind you, and as you hinge forward from the waist, trying to give me a nice tabletop line, either keeping the arms soft at your side or float the hands gently overhead. Think of framing through your ears, and as you do so, give me a soft point through the back foot and softly extend through your fingertips. Trying to give me as long a line as you can through the arms, back and leg, and try to keep the shoulders and hips nice and stacked. Float softly back towards the midline of the body and heel toe the legs in, or keep them hip width distance apart if you prefer. Float the hands to prayer in front of the heart. Take a big breath in, and on an exhale, sit back in an imaginary chair and keep your hands in a soft prayer position in front of your heart center, pushing into the palms softly and floating the elbows softly out. Keep loading into the bum. We're going to take it into the side chair, Parsva Utkatasana. Twist softly to the right, trying to anchor your left elbow on the outside of the right knee. Keep those hands in prayer. Right elbow is softly tracking up to the ceiling. You can stay here or float the arms into a soft T-frame, trying to keep that left elbow softly on the outside of the right knee as you just open up the arms, anchoring the left hand to the floor and opening up the top arm to the ceiling. Keep weight into your bum and your heels so that you can feel that conditioning and strengthening work happening through the thighs and the legs and the core. Float softly back towards the midline of the body and drop your fingertips towards the mat as you open up into a little floating butterfly. We're going to set up a crow line. Place your hands softly on the mat, more or less shoulder width apart. Give me a soft bend in the elbows. Find a leaning spot on your tricep, so somewhere between the elbow and the armpit. See if you can lift one toe off the mat, and then try to replicate on the other side. If this is your first time coming into crow, try not to tuck the head in and look towards your feet. Look off the front of your mat and use your nose and your chin to find a little balancing point through the core. If achieving liftoff is not happening for you today, just find your little turnout position on the mat. So gripping through all 10 toes, coming into a soft little butterfly, finding that lean in position with your hands, that little bend, and then just leaning into and back to your start position, maybe rocking dynamically between the two. Maybe just rocking comfortably back and forth. Otherwise, hold your crow bakasana, getting a nice little bit of conditioning work into the core. And then softly find your way back into your floating butterfly. We're going to chaturanga down to get onto the belly. Stepping back into a plank line. Hands stacking underneath the shoulders, push the floor away. Give me a nice solid plank. Use the knees if you need to. Bend through the elbows. Hovering off the floor for a second if you can, hugging those elbows in towards the ribcage. And then releasing to the belly. Soften through the feet. Relax and drape your legs into the mat in a soft parallel line. Swim the arms alongside the body. Back of the hands connected to the mat. And drop your forehead softly to the mat, taking a little time out. We're going to come straight into a locust line, and then we're going to play with that locust. Pretend that you've got a little marble underneath your nose. Roll the marble away from you to the front of the mat and start peeling up through the ribs. At the same time, softly think of squeezing the shoulder blades together and the glutes together to lift and hover the arms and the legs off the mat, so that you come into a soft floating position, almost resting the weight on your hip bones. Try not to collapse through the spine, so almost dropping and weighting your fingertips back towards the edge of the mat as if you wanted to touch the edge of the mat and growing through your spine as much as you can. Think of lengthening through your crown, your fingertips, and the toes. Softly peel back down to the mat with control. And as you connect to the mat and tuck back to your start position on the forehead, roll your head to one side and softly just surrender all the tension of your body into the mat. Take a little time out here. We're going to come back into locust and we're going to change the arm position. Float back towards the midline of the body. Bend through the elbows and stack the forearms in front of you, finding a lean-in position for your forehead on the back of your hands. The rest of the locust line is going to mimic what you did in round one. Visualize that marble underneath your nose as you roll it away, squeeze softly through the shoulders and the glutes to hover your forearms and your legs off the mat. If this is too much for your shoulders, stay in position one with the arms at your sides, lengthening through the fingertips and trying to touch the mat behind you. Play where you're comfortable. If you've got those forearms stacked, softly push and resist, one arm pushing down and the other arm pushing up. Float softly back down to the mat. Swim the arms alongside your chest. Tuck your toes under, bend the knees if you need to, otherwise keep the legs extended, knees off the mat as you push through the palms and the feet to come back into a plank line. Hold that plank line. Then think knee to hip on the right and hold. Give me a nice parallel line to the floor and don't collapse through the shoulders. Keep pushing the mat away through your hands. Hold it, 3 more breaths, and then we're going to come into a side plank on the right. Step back into your side plank. Look through and check that your feet are just inside a hip width distance apart. Flip your body weight right, knife edging both feet and holding your modified side plank, or floating the top leg and placing it atop your bottom leg. If this feels good, hold or play. Bend the top leg, reach for the foot and tuck it into a tree line so that it's towards the top of your thigh, and float the top arm softly up to the ceiling, thinking T-frame through the body. Stay or play. Run your hand down the length of your leg and reach softly for the bridge of your foot. Think dancer. Kick or push the foot into your hand and resist with the hand. Then think of giving me a mini wild thing. Tap the toe of the top leg to the floor behind you and maybe throw your top arm over and reach for the wall in front of you as you gently look overhead. Keep that back toe connected to the floor. Float back to your plank line on the mat. Push the mat away with both hands. Hold, bracing through that core, so try not to pike the bum up to the ceiling. You're going to find your way back into a recovery pose, child pose, big toes together, knees open nice and wide. If you need some release through the shoulders, drape the arms softly alongside the body and give me 3 shrugs forward and 3 back. We're going to repeat that sequence on the left side. You're going to set yourself up for your dolphin line. Ease your way onto the elbows. Interlace the fingers, give me a nice little fist. Push the floor away with your elbows, tuck your toes under and pike your bum up to the ceiling, finding your dolphin line. So creep the feet forward towards the nose, either staying here, dropping the crown of your head down, but not allowing it to touch the floor, or play dynamically, driving the weight forward over your forearms to try and tap your chin to the floor, and then come back to your start position. Shooting for at least 5 repetitions. Strong through the forearms, so keep pushing the floor away. Keep pulling your belly button firmly in towards the center line. Once you've done your 5 repetitions, find your way back into your dolphin frame, hanging the crown of your head softly down towards the floor. You're going to walk your way back. Ease onto the hands, bending through the knees as much as you need to walk your hands back towards your legs, softening through the knees and peeling up into a standing frame on the mat. Take a look behind you, check that you've got enough runway. If you need to, take a step forward. Check that the feet are stacking underneath the hips. You're going to softly extend the left leg behind you as you float the arms softly alongside your hips, focusing first on trying to square up through the shoulders and the pelvis. And then when you're comfortable here, softly float the arms out in front. Framing your head gently, softening through the back foot and the fingertips. Float softly back towards the midline of the body and heel toe in, giving me a narrow mountain, or keep the stance stacking underneath your hips. Float your hands to prayer. Find your focus and your concentration. When you're ready, bend through the knees, take a seat, wait until your bum and your heels. Try and really challenge those thighs, trying to bring your butt a little bit lower to the floor. Take a big breath in, and on the exhale, twist softly to the left to try and hook your right elbow on the outside of the left knee. Keep pushing into those hands and just give me as much weight into your bum as you can. Stay or play. Float the bottom arm to the ceiling and open up the top arm to the ceiling, trying to keep that elbow softly pushing on the outside of your knee so that you can feel a nice little stretch into the right shoulder blade. You ready to try your crow? Bring your hands to prayer along the midline of the body and float back to your start position in prayer. Drop your fingertips to the mat and allow the knees to softly butterfly out to the side. Coming to rest with the weight bearing on your toes and your heels off the floor. Find a planting position on the mat through the hands. Open up the fingers nice and wide so that there's lots of space on the mat. Bend the elbows. Think of your arms almost as being a Pilates ring and lean the weight forward as you squeeze your knees into the tricep. Find a resting spot that feels comfortable for you. Zipper up softly on the inner thighs and your lower abs and see if you can get a connection to your core that allows you to bring one toe off the mat. If that feels good, softly replicate on side 2. Holding your crow pose here, keeping your gaze softly off the top of your mat. If liftoff is not for you, just find that gentle rock forward, maybe resting the weight on both of your big toes, focusing on that connection to the inner thighs and the core before you softly rock back to your start position. So just play with the movement dynamically. Working the crow line, Bakasana, that works for you today. Then ease your way back to your start position on the mat and set yourself up in a plank line, stepping the feet back and pausing in your plank for a second. We're going to chaturanga down to the belly with control, bend through the elbows, control as you come down, release to the mat, legs softly relaxed, arms at your sides, palms up, forehead connected to the mat. Let's come up into our first locust. Find that marble underneath your nose as you roll it away, softly squeeze through the glutes and the shoulders to hover the arms and the legs off the mat. Lengthen through those fingertips, try and touch the wall behind you. Allow the toes to softly gravitate up to the ceiling and lengthen as much as you can through the crown of your head. Peel softly back down to the mat. As you reconnect, slide onto your opposite cheek this time, bleeding all of the muscle tension into the mat as you take a little time out. Come back towards the midline of the body, rinsing and repeating, or stacking your forearms this time as you float up into your locust line. Gently roll that marble away, squeeze softly through the shoulder blades and the glutes to hover your stacked forearms and your legs off the mat behind you. With the top arm push softly down, with the bottom arm push softly up, so that you're working a little bit of an oppositional stretch as you come into your modified locust. Then softly reconnect to the mat and swing the arms alongside your body, more or less with the hands in line with your bosom. Tuck your toes under. Use a bent knee position if you need to push up and come back into a plank line. Look through. Check that your feet are just inside of hip width distance apart. We're going to stack to the left in a side plank. Pivot left, knife edging both feet and floating the top arm up to the ceiling. Stay or float the top leg on top of the bottom leg. If that feels good, and don't collapse those hips, keep them nice and high. Bend the top knee, reach for the foot, tuck it into the tree line, and float the top arm softly up to the ceiling. Stay or play. Run your top hand down the length of your leg, reaching for your foot. Think dancer, softly kicking the foot into your hand and resisting with the hand, getting a nice stretch on that top quad. Then take that back toe, connect it to the floor behind you, and float the top arm up to the ceiling, or gently bring it overhead, thinking more of an extension through the trunk as you gently peek up and look to the ceiling, giving me a modified Kamaktrasana wild thing. Keep that big toe connected to the floor on the top leg. Float back to your start position on the mat, easing your way back into plank and kick back in child. Big toes together, knees open nice and wide, arms extended out in front of you, or you can just wrap them alongside the body. Release through the shoulders. From here, we're going to find our way into a seated frame towards the top end of the mat so that you've got a little bit of room to play behind you. So just scooch off on one bum cheek, creep forward if you need to, and just sit up nice and tall with the knees bent and the soles of the feet connected to the floor. We're going to play up a boat line and see if we can get some extension through the legs. Tip the weight just off the tailbone and keep your hands bracing softly down on the shins, almost tucking your body into a little ball frame, bringing the knees in as close to the chest as you can. Try not to Quasimodo out through the spine, so give me a long length through the spine. Then take your middle index finger and thumb and see if you can give me a toe lock around each toe, bringing the legs into extension in front of you as you hold onto your toes with that little Padangusthasana lock. If holding onto the legs is not an option for you, you can float into a tabletop boat, or you can extend, just keeping the arms softly at your side. Play where you're comfortable. Either staying here or opening up your legs into a soft V frame. Try not to round out, so keep lengthening from your tailbone to your crown, almost as if there was a suction cup, gently pulling your crown towards the ceiling, and pull your belly button firmly in to the center line. Then try to keep a strong inner thigh connection and a strong pull up from your pelvic floor towards your belly button line. Open up the legs a little bit wider and float the hands into prayer in front, extending through the heels of your feet and your fingertips. Float the feet together along the midline and sit up nice and tall in a modified staff pose. Dandasana, dropping the fingertips down towards the floor and getting a soft release through your shoulders. We're going to set up a little inverted plank line from here, and you can play with the foot line. So I'll give you two options to play with. Float the hands softly back so that they line up underneath your shoulders. Keep allowing your bosom to come up towards the ceiling, so don't collapse through the shoulders. Soften through the feet, almost as if you wanted to try and get the soles of your feet to connect to the floor as you squeeze through the glutes and pike your hips up to the ceiling. If trying to reach the soles of your feet to the floor feels uncomfortable, V your legs out into a Pilates V, rather focusing on trying to connect the knife-edged portion of your foot to the mat. Play where you're comfortable. Just give me a neutral chin line and keep squeezing through the glutes. Push the floor away with your palms. Float softly back towards your start position on the mat. Floating the arms out in front, open up your feet hip-width distance apart. You're going to give me one roll down to come straight into a bridge line. Nod your chin firmly towards your chest, round out your spine in a little C curve and articulate down one vertebra at a time. As soon as your lower back legs to the mat, bend your knees, run your hands down your legs, tucking your heels in as close to your bum as you can, maybe holding on to the back of your ankles if you can, or dropping the hands softly to the mat if you prefer, as you squeeze through the glutes and come up into a bridge line. Make sure you're squeezing through the glutes, your hamstrings, activate the top of your quads, and keep your belly and your hips nice and even towards the ceiling. Either staying here with the arms on the floor, or bend the elbows, give me a little L shape between your index finger and your thumb, and then hook that little brace underneath your waist and find a little basket of support, trying to creep your feet maybe closer towards your back line. You could even heel toe out on the feet, trying to dynamically increase that arch in your back. Try to keep the chin tucked firmly towards the chest and try not to look to the side of the room. Notice what you're doing with your knees. Try to keep them hip-width distance apart as you play, so try not to V them in or out. Hold your bridge, Setu Bandha. From here, we're going to work a little rocket to come into a standing position, and we're going to play with some balancing poses. You may need a strap for the next series. Let go of that brace underneath your back. Open up that tight knot between the shoulders and roll down one vertebra at a time. As soon as you've made your way into neutral spine, softly hug the knees in towards the chest and cradle rock your lower back out. Either staying here, rocking side to side and then rolling over to one side and pushing up into a standing frame, or opening up your knees so that they're a little bit wider than hip-width distance apart. Give me a nice 90 behind your knees, brace your hands behind the thighs, float your elbows softly out as you nod your chin to your chest, rocking the weight up just off your tailbone. Think of that boat line that you played with, and then you're going to rock back and forth dynamically, rounding out through your spine so that momentum takes you back, rolling just onto the shoulder blades and back to your start position. Give me two more, and then use the momentum on the last one to brace your hands, palms down into the mat, creeping up onto your fingertips and softly folding up along the center line. Heel toe in, connecting the big toes in the ankles, and stand up tall in a modified mountain, dropping the fingertips down towards the floor and anchoring through your feet as you find mountain Tadasana. Keep your current orientation on the mat, front view. You're going to bend the right knee and give me a baby tree, placing the sole of the right foot on the inside of the right leg, either keeping the big toe connected to the mat or sliding up a little bit higher so that the whole foot is underneath your knee, not on the knee joint, just below the knee joint. Just open up softly through that right knee as you find your tree. Float your hands to a gentle prayer in front of your heart and keep your eye trained on a focal point on the wall in front of you. Float your arms softly overhead in prayer, and as you come overhead, just try to soften through the shoulder blades but keep lengthening through the fingers. Then keep those hands overhead and float the arms softly into more of a parallel line so that you've got an arm stacking over each shoulder. Keep your left hand where it is. Draw your right knee up to 90 and run your right hand down the length of the leg, reaching for the bridge of your foot. We're going to come into dancer. Squeeze the two knees softly together. Keep framing your ear on the left as you hinge forward from the waist. Don't hug the foot into your bum. Kick the foot up and away from your bum as you softly come into the tabletop line on the mat. Peel softly up along the midline of the body. Think knee to nose on the right, taking your middle index finger and thumb, reaching for your big toe and coming into extension. Left arm at your side, hold onto the hip or bring the arm into T. If you can't reach the foot, maybe take your strap. If you've got a strap with a secure D-ring, maybe giving me a nice little loop that you can feed your foot into. Feed your foot into the loop. Make sure that the D-ring is secure before you hold onto the strap with your right arm, and then open up into the B position. Play with that left arm. If you don't have a strap that has a secure D-ring, like this Manduka one, you could just step into the strap with your right leg, holding the A line for maybe 10 breaths, and then opening up into the B line. Okay, where you're comfortable. Come back towards the midline of the body, loose the foot or the strap and just float the leg out in front. Holding that line, step back into parallel, check that your feet are stacking underneath your knees, place the hands softly on the top of your thighs and fold forward. Either stopping in tabletop and just dangling your arms down towards the floor, maybe just releasing through the arms, or bring it all the way down and find your way into gorilla. Invert your hands so that the palms are looking up and tuck a hand underneath each foot. Then gently rock the body weight back and forth between the balls and the heels of your feet. Getting a nice little massage into those hands. Nice little massage into the feet at the same time. Let's try that series on the other side. So if you know you need your strap, you can bring your strap along with you as you soften through the knees, feed your hands out. Think of ragdoll rolling up. If you're going to need your strap, just drape it softly over your left shoulder as you heel toe in and find your narrow mountain. Think of anchoring through the feet, so really grip the mat with the whole foot. Think of rooting through your toes, the balls, the heels of the feet, as well as trying to root through the sides of your feet at the same time. Then think of the stack of your body. Think shoulders over hips, hips over knees, knees over ankles. When you're ready, you're going to open up into a tree line on the left. Bend the left knee. Give me a baby tree line, either toe connected to the mat or come up a little bit higher. When you feel you've got your comfortable foot position, float your hands into prayer and find that drushti, that focal point on the wall in front of you. When you're ready, gently float your hands into prayer overhead, keeping your eyes trained on that focal point the whole time, softening through the shoulders as you open up the arms into a soft parallel line, palms looking into the center line, almost as if you were hugging a ball between the two hands. Then keep your right hand where it is, tracking up to the ceiling. Think of bringing your left leg up to 90 and run your left hand down the length of your leg, reaching for the bridge of your foot. Find a hand, hold on that foot, and squeeze the two knees softly together, finding your starting point. When you hinge forward, don't hug the foot into your bum. Think of kicking the foot away from your bum. So you're using that back leg as a little bit of a counterbalance to the weight that you're bringing forward as you hinge forward into your tabletop position. Find your way back to the center line. Reach for your strap. If it was on the floor, if it was on your hand, just take it off the shoulder. Feed your foot into your secure little loop. Coming into the A line, left hand either up towards your ear, out in a soft T-frame, or resting on your hips as you find Utthita Hasta Padangusthasana A. And then when you're comfortable, open up into the B line. Whether you're using the strap or whether you've managed to make that connection with your big toe, focus on really trying to root through your supportive side. So as you open up to the side, try not to lean aggressively with your body weight. Think of pinning it through the shoulder, the hip, the ankle, and the knee. Either arm and T, or just soft at your side, playing where you're comfortable. Hold your B position and bring the leg back towards the midline of the body. Loose the strap or the big toe and just use a strong inner thigh connection and a strong pull up from your pelvic floor to hold that leg out. And then step into a comfortable parallel line, shaking out the legs if you need to. Look down and check that your feet are stacking underneath your hips. Arms soft at your side, fingertips looking down towards the floor. Take a big breath in, and on an exhale, softly fold forward. Depending on how stiff you're feeling through the back chain of the legs and the lower back, you might want to either stop in a table, maybe just dangle the fingers down and trace a circular pattern in one direction for about 5 before you repeat in the other direction. Or coming all the way down, connecting softly to the mat, inverting your hands, palms up to the ceiling, and tucking them underneath your feet as you find your gorilla Padahastasana. Softly rocking back and forth between the balls and the heels of your feet, getting an awesome stretch not only into the arms and the shoulders, back chain of the legs and the lower back, but also working a nice little massage into your hands and your feet. Keep the crown of the head softly tracking down to the floor, belly button firmly pulled in. Then come to stillness and tuck your hands out from underneath your feet. Soften through the knees as much as you need to ragdoll roll up. Peel up uber slowly, coming back into Tadasana and heel toe in, giving me a narrow stance. Think of that root through your feet, almost spreading all 10 toes nice and wide and gripping into the mat. As you grip through the toes, think of the balance first in the balls of your feet, then rock back slightly into your heels. Come to a midway point between the two and think of trying to give me weight on the outer edges of your feet and then on the inner edges of your feet. Then think of finding a beautiful balancing point so that the foot feels totally grounded and connected to the mat. Find a little zip on the inside of both ankle bones and zipper up all the way along the inner thighs. Connect through your pubic bone, from your pubic bone to your waistline. From your waistline, zip up all the way to your breastline. Drop and weight the fingertips down towards the floor. Tuck your tailbone softly under so that the glutes are softly engaged and think of giving me as much length through the body. Then think of your stack. Try not to lean forward with your head. Think of beautifully stacking your head between the two shoulder blades. Stack your shoulders over your hips over your knees, and your knees over your ankles. Float your hands softly to prayer in front of your heart. Keep your eyes open if you need to, or close the eyes, and just try and focus on that area between your two eyebrows, your third eye, your Anya chakra. Keeping your focus softly there. If keeping the eyes closed makes you sway back and forth too much and you feel unsteady, open the eyes softly and just keep them softly, almost hazily focused on the wall in front of you. So find what works for you. Otherwise, eyes closed and you'll focus gently on your third eye, your center of consciousness in the body. Just take your focus softly in and come to stillness, trying to keep your mountain as steady as you can. Such a simple pose, one of our foundation poses, Tadasana Mountain, but absolutely elemental in finding and being able to connect to your inner self and find a sense of stillness, yet strong control through the body. Nod your chin softly towards your chest to end of your practice. Namaste to you all. Thank you so much for coming out and playing with me today. I really hope that you enjoyed today's class. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And please remember to share with me your comments on the class in the comments box just below your display window in YouTube. I shall see you all for Pilates conditioning tomorrow. We are working into the core, so you're going to feel your belly tomorrow. Come prepared to work. Until then, keep it light.